Welcome to the September Fullcast office hours. We're calling it the Attainable Quota powered by Fullcast. We're super excited to share the latest and greatest in our targets functionality, which has undergone a lot of upgrades in the past few months or so. So we will get started with some quick housekeeping and then dive straight in. So with our agenda here, we will start with some welcome and introductions. We have a special guest for folks who have been on our sessions before, you might notice. And then the session topics we've broken down into 4 buckets here. So 1 is how we're bringing more flexibility to your planning. 2 is how we're making workflows more efficient. 3 is making your goals more data-driven and intelligent. And 4, connecting processes between the systems and existing internal processes that you may have. For the format today, we're going to start with some discussion, and then we will demo all of the things that we mentioned in the discussion as well. I'll keep an eye on the Q&A throughout the session and make sure that we are able to bring those questions up during discussion or make sure they also get addressed by the end of the call. And then tomorrow I will email out the recording. Introductions. Really quickly, I'm Ashley. I do customer education here at Fullcast, events, content, etc. And we have, I'll do Tyler and then we'll save our special guest for last. Tyler, make it quick.
Hi, Tyler, Director of Product. I was on the CX side for a long time. Good to see everybody that has joined us today. And Victoria, your turn, special guest. I love it.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm on the RevOps team at Cloudflare. Been very involved in helping with this and had a great time working with Tyler getting Fullcast up and running over the last year. So really looking forward to this.
And I'll give a little bit more color here. I think one thing I wanted to emphasize, and this is the perfect opportunity for us to do so, is that as we grow the platform and we introduce more capabilities, functionalities, product lines to what Fullcast has to offer, we haven't lost sight of the fact that we started as RevOps for RevOps by RevOps, and we want to stay true to that. And so Victoria is on because of just how integral she was in providing feedback that Tyler and team then used to really identify the most critical and the most powerful improvements that we could do and make sure we work those into the product. So yes, we'll go ahead and dive in.
There's nothing like having a customer here to provide those business use cases and just really talk about how the product actually gets used in real life. So and also keep me honest on everything. That's not how that works. So anyway, let's talk about some flexible planning models. One of the things that really, when we go back in time and we think about, Fullcast target module or quota planning, as a lot of people will think about it, was that when you did any kind of quota setting in Fullcast prior to this year, it was one style of target. And you had to do both tops down and bottoms up in the same target. And so if you were I'm a tops down house and we get a number from finance and we just push that down and that's what you sell to, or I'm a bottoms up house and I look at the rep that is you are an enterprise AE, you get $1 million quota, or I'm building quota off of the number of accounts or potential of a territory, whatever the bottoms up methodology is, you would have to use the exact same style of target. We were forcing you to do tops down, even though you just wanted to do bottoms up. And we would force you to do bottoms up, even though you might be just tops down. And so in the new world, we've kind of split these things up into 2 separate things. And finally, there is this hybrid planning, which is really blending both of these models, both tops down, bottoms up, which you can do. And there's some stuff on the roadmap, which I'll kind of talk about, which will really bring both those houses together and kind of do this cool thing called forced distribution, which Victoria's smiling about because there's a Cloudflare thing there. But anyway, cool. So let's take a look at how that's changed in Fullcast today. And Victoria, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, this is actually a really big one because when you go in and you have to push down in order to create a bottoms up a lot of our plans at the rep level are based on a productivity value, and it was really hard for us to get there. So this is something that's going to just make things easier as I work with like the larger team on how we're actually spreading quota across the teams.
Yeah. The new world here starts here, and this is how you know you're in the new world. Right now, what we are calling version 2 is in an early access or a beta phase. At the end of October, we will move this to general availability. So everybody that has targets and using them will see this new world. If you want it now or sooner rather than later, you can talk to your CSM to get it flipped on. But version 1 would drop you directly into the target screen. Version 2 of what you will see at the end of October or earlier if you want to get access, top down and bottom up. This is how you know things are separated, and you can kind of build these 2 targets out. So I'm actually in the teams module right now, and we've got our list of teams. You can do this in territories, teams, or products, but bottoms up is where we will start our day and kind of get into the demo. So bottom up demo. Categories and things like that. That's just to help you kind of figure stuff out in terms of I've got a lot of targets and I want to categorize the different targets and descriptions. Most of the quota plannings in time series. Split is usually what you'll do for account executives. I'm not going to go too much into all the details because there's plenty of training and documentation on all this stuff. We've introduced the ability to assign multiple roles. And what was before is you had one role, account executive, and that was it. But the reality is I'm building quota, it rolls up, right? There's might be overassigns and underassigns, and managers are responsible for quotas and things like that. And so certainly when we think about ramp profiles and exports, those are kind of the top 2 reasons why we need to handle these things, because it's not just about the AEs, but it's also about the sales managers and anybody else that you have here. So we've got this, and feel free, Victoria, if you've got anything.
I was going to say also not even just the sales managers, but I mean, almost every company I've been at, I've based like sales engineering quotas off of the AE quotas and things like that. So this allows you to assign them to it as well, so that when they get their coverage, they're getting the quota. You don't have to create a separate one.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because in the prior world, you would have to create the AE quota, and then you would create a sales engineer, or in this demo, we would call it pre-sales consultant. You would create a separate target for them. That was literally just a formula to look at your AE quota. So why not just keep it into one and not overcomplicate and add millions of different targets when it's just the same thing? And so in this world, now we're able to kind of bring that all together in one. There is some UI cleanup to be done here, but essentially what this is just a way to not create a target on specific nodes. So commonly we have these unassigned nodes, which everyone kind of knows about, and we don't normally want to create a target on unassigned because no one's covering it. There's no quota. So there's a way to just easily just eliminate that by saying, name is equal to unassigned, and it won't create the quota on those unassigned nodes. Additionally, sometimes there's scenarios where you don't want to create it. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Here, where you don't want to create it against a level. So like level 8 or level 7 or whatever. So you can do that functionality there, and then we'll just save this. So this is going to drop us into the actual editor. And this will look familiar to a lot of people who have been setting quotas in the first version of this. The one difference is now that we have this multi-select functionality on the far left here. And so the far left here allows us to be pretty flexible. And I think that's kind of the next phase of what we're going to be talking about here is the flexibility or the efficiency of this. So I'll kind of go back to our deck. We'll probably come back to tops down in a bit, but I do want to talk about efficient workflows here.
Yeah, so this one, we were hearing that there are certain tasks in the process of creating and massaging and managing your targets that you need to do over and over. And so they were in the previous world, as Tyler keeps saying, a lot of those things ended up being very click heavy, let's call it. And so we've introduced a few key things that are going to allow us to really streamline the things that you're going to have to do over and over. So Tyler,
Yeah.
you want to tell us more about that?
How did seasonality go for you this year, this past year, Victoria?
Seasonality was like the bane of my existence this past year, in
You
full transparency.
you
We
got
were
really good at copy and paste.
I
Even
was really,
copy and
really
paste?
good at having it up on one screen by month and like knowing what the by month needed to be in copy. Yes. What I will say is our org is not small. And so, as things were moving down, it was very easy for the seasonality to get messed up and then kind of mess up the quotas at a lower level. And so this template is probably one of the greatest things that you have given me. So thank you, Tyler.
And I mean, it's not just you, right? This is a comment, like you went through the pain of having to, do the seasonality at every level. And I think the challenge here is that it's not just a company seasonality, right? When you get into into really fine tuning your quota setting process, it's now starting to figure out, well, it's not here's my all company seasonality, but it is a mayor seasonality or go as far as a mayor enterprise versus even government has its own seasonality. And so now you're having to keep track of not just one or two seasonality profiles, but that can go into 10, 12 seasonality profiles because you're getting tighter with your process and better at predicting, okay, where is that quota going to come from and when? And when you get into that level of detail, it does not scale to have to repeat that over and over again and type that out a million times. And so that was one of the things that came out of this was us building these kind of like schedule templates. And so we can actually just look at that right now. So I'm going to duplicate this tab. We'll come back to this in a bit because even if I come into this schedule, which is a common thing, you'll see now these schedule templates. And by the way, we talk about seasonality because a lot of the RevOps world thinks about it from the seasonality of the business and the rhythms of that. But we do call it a schedule because our intention is it's not just about quota here, but it can be about setting targets against budgets, which is kind of more focused on scheduling out those budgets across months or quarters. And so you'll see us call it schedules, but more often we think about quota and seasonality kind of in the one realm. And so now schedules kind of live in this world here, this profile piece. And I've only built out the AMER, and we can add another one. We'll call this one APAC. And when we create it, you won't see it in the other screen unless I refresh, which I won't, but monthly or quarterly, because guess what? Most people are doing things at a quarterly level anyway, and we'll add this category for fun. And you can give it your seasonality and save. And then this now schedule will be available in any target that you build. It's pretty straightforward, I think. Okay, so we'll add the AMER one for this one. That's just a flat one that I created. And at this stage, if I was to just hit save, it would just be applying this to the all teams, but we've kind of provided those little 3 dots here to just help with the bulk editing piece, which is kind of this next stage, right? So simplified bulk editing. And this was another experience that we had in the sense that you have when you start to get into 200 plus reps and needing to apply a basic baseline quota or a seasonality change or any of these things, the old world was extremely difficult one by one. And now in the new world, there's the bulk editing feature, which we'll kind of pivot into. I don't know, Victoria, if you've got anything to share there on kind of your
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely huge for us. we would need to make a change, say we need to change seasonality, we would need to change it for all of the reps, but instead of going in and doing it at an individual level, now we can actually at a high level say, okay, I want all of EMEA on this, or I want all of AMER on this one, but PubSec, let's keep it separate because PubSec is a completely different seasonality. So this is a huge ask that my team had coming in for this year, and I think it looks really good, and I'm really excited about it. Also, the recalculate, because the recalculate, but you didn't get to that yet. Sorry.
Yeah, don't jump ahead yet. The not allowed to jump ahead. One of the things that was interesting with the bulk editing, right? And this is also, I see this across a lot of customers, is you have, especially bottoms up, is tops down is kind of a little bit more straightforward because you're just pushing these numbers down. But like at the bottoms up level, the challenge that we have is you've got reps that have different sort of baseline quotas. And I'm very specific with this term of baseline because guess what? There's all of these different types of adjustments we do on top of our quotas, right? There's the RAM profiles, and the managers want to tweak stuff and do all the fun stuff that you want to do with quotas. But getting to that baseline is super important. And one of the things that came out of the bulk editing was giving customers the ability to do this in kind of a big one fell swoop in terms of, I know I've got all my enterprise reps allocated to this baseline quota, or my mid-market reps, or whatever, however you split that up, rather than having to do that one-on-one. And I think that we saw that too in our planning process this last year with just setting these different quotas up. And so certainly coming back into this, right, I'm going to type in 1 million because that's easy to type, and I'll come into the 3 dots, and now this is the bulk editing stuff. One of the things was like, well, sure, on the product side we can just tell customers to click 400 times, but I didn't feel like that was really acceptable, so we provided some templated selections. One of those are all targets, so this would select everything. We've got person level targets, so you'll see this in teams. So as we drill down into the actual people, those are all selected. If you're doing this in territories, that would just show your leaf node targets. There's some other exceptions. So we were seeing some with customers that wanted to apply like an over assign or an under assign just at that manager level. So in order to do those changes, you don't want to actually apply some kind of over assign at the rep level. So you would kind of do all targets except person targets. So there's some functionality there that we've done with the templates. And then finally, there's this open-ended custom criteria piece. So I want you to select everything that has the word EMEA in it. And so if you've got a really good naming strategy for your nodes in teams or products or territories, wherever you're doing this at, you can easily say, go do this for all things with West in it, or EMEA or whatever, and it would go in and select this stuff. So in this case, I'm going to just do all the person targets. And we go into this multi-edit mode now, so we really want to give you control over this. This was another challenge, I think, Victoria, we had before, where it's like you have to edit the target and the schedule at the same time. Now it's I want to edit this or not. I want to edit this or not. And so we're going to edit and apply these changes to both at this phase. We can also add our RAM profiles if we wanted to, but we're not going to do that today. And so we'll save this. And so I've just added a bunch. It's showing zeros because that is the next phase of things. So we've got our recalculate, roll up, and distribute. This was a bottoms up quota, so no distribute in this world. And roll up for us in the last world in V1 was kind of commingled with editing targets. And it would roll all the way up no matter what and kind of overwrite a bunch of stuff. And so in the new world, that's been separated out. So again, as we think about efficient workflows and kind of making, skipping, reducing the repetitive tasks and skipping some of these steps that you had to do multiple times, we'll kind of go into the recalculate and roll up stuff, but in Victoria, I think this is another one that we were struggling with in the sense that we would have to roll this stuff up and maybe we don't want to, or we need to recalculate and maybe we don't want to. And I don't know if you got any other anecdotes there.
Yeah, it was the combination of the roll up and the seasonality that was really the hard part, because I'd want to roll up at a high level, but there'd be different seasonalities beneath that. So I'd have to roll up at the lower levels. So this is like a huge thing for us to be able to select what we're rolling up.
Yeah, and I think also one of the other challenges was like the recalculate stuff, and that's where you were kind of teasing earlier. And what we were seeing in that planning cycle was that recalculate was only working on a specific node. You would have to go with like, and so if you have formula-based targets, and we were talking about sales engineers, right? And so maybe the sales engineers have a target that's not exactly the same as the AE. Maybe the sales engineer has a target that is a formula of that. So it's like take the AE quota and multiply it by 80% because we're not giving you the full thing. I'm making this up. But like if you change the AE quota, then you need to, in Fullcast, recalculate the SE quota because it's not going to automatically recalculate, which is something that is in the works. So we will be doing some functionality around auto recalculation for these formula-based targets. But today, or in the old world, you'd have to go and kind of recalculate individually. In the new world, you can now just select recalculate and select all targets and update, and it'll go through all your formulas and go through that process. Same.
Yeah, that's huge.
And so in this case, what we're going to do is just roll up everything and we'll just hit save and let it kind of run its thing. And so now it's brought all of the quota that we set against our people all the way up to the top, and we can kind of see this where we were at that RVP East namer where we saw those people at, and we can see them down here now. Cool. So that was it. You know, I talked a lot, so it felt longer than it really was, but I mean, this workflow, which could take hours before, is now down to something in the span of a couple of minutes to really get your initial version 1 of bottoms up targets done. Granted, I know that there's probably a couple other levels of that, but that workflow has gotten a lot better for us with the bottoms up piece. And Ashley, I saw you come off mute.
I was just going to share an anecdote of also, I think the flexibility in terms of workflows is also that we kind of talked about it, but you can do it in the order that you need to do it, right? And I think in the old version, I was having to memorize a formulaic, like do this, do this, do this. But if you didn't do it in this order, you might like turn the world upside down. And now this one, literally, it's like, well, I want to do this right now. You do this right now, and you do the other piece later. And it's fine. It's really nice to not have to memorize a certain step. You can really just do it in terms of what you need to do today and right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Oh, intelligent data-driven goals. I think so. This one says it right there, right? Being able to set quotas that are fair and reflect territory potential. And we talk a lot about the fact that a quota shouldn't be just a blanket number, right? And that we want to keep fairness, and territories are key to this. And I think it's always been part of our message. So I was very excited about this ability to really make it true.
Is this Teamatory?
Yes, it is.
I'll let Victoria talk about Teamatory.
Teamatory is what we named this on our side, the Cloudflare side, when we asked for it. But really what it is we set, and I've also done this at multiple places, where you set a target for your territory. So like, you know, this is the potential that business, that territory and account set can do. And then as someone comes in, you apply a ramp. So what we want is like a territory target, and then we want to have a team's target, but it needs to be taking the territory target and then applying whatever the formula is, the ramp, the whatever it is. And so that this is really huge for us, because last year we ended up having a really hard time kind of blending the people and the territories and figuring out the right way to do it. And this allows us to now say, okay, this person is assigned to 4 territories, like a manager, right? This manager is assigned to 4 territories, and we're going to be able to see what's the sum of those territories when we pull it in here, and then we can actually set the target for the person the correct way. So this is probably the most anticipated and exciting thing. Actually, everything that's been on here has been exciting for us. But this is something that we're really, really excited about.
Yeah, when we see customers get to this level of maturity with their quota planning process, where they are ready to start building quota against a territory because they trust the potential that they've put against a territory. And that gives you this level of confidence in this territory is responsible for this level of quota because we know that the accounts we put here will support that quota, right? That is like the holy grail of quota planning in my mind. But the challenge, you're right, is that it's really difficult to kind of bring that together with the person. Because we do assign people to the territories, but it's kind of like the triangle where you have territories, quota, and people. And if you've got somebody that's been assigned in a particularly, Victoria, you were talking about that manager scenario where, we have managers assigned to 3 different regions or whatever it might be. What's the manager's total quota? And you can kind of get to that with reporting, but it's not as straightforward. And so Teamatory really brings in this level of here is a quota based on a territory potential, but I'm giving this directly to a person and assign it to this specific person through the Teams module. You couldn't do that before. And today I'm still in production here. So this is still sitting in our development environment, so we won't actually get to see it today because I don't want to have to go through this whole switching back and forth. But essentially, what you would see when you log into a quota piece, and we were looking at this one, is the one that we were doing. When you go into the target details, when this hits production, you will now see territory targets, team targets, and product targets. And you will be able to drag these into our formula builder, much like you can today with like metrics and stuff like that, right? So we can already do this with our metrics, but let's be more sophisticated and calculate a quota based on territory potential or whatever it might be and bring that over. And so these metrics and these other quotas that we build in other modules of Fullcast will now be able to be centralized through the Teams module and assign a quota directly to a person. A lot of benefits with that as we think about end coverage workflows, offboarding employees, all these automated, and I wouldn't go as far as to say automated, but all these workflows that we have that kind of guide you through this process. Also look for person level targets and say, okay, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to transfer the quota to the manager, to a new person, to a TBH to get held? And there's a lot of nuance there. And I think that works really well with the person level targets and transferring those between teams and people as you see things change. Okay, so that's kind of this blended Teamatory thing. The biggest thing, it's like not as much wow in the UI as it is just really bringing everything together into the formula builder. And we expect to see this in production in the coming week or so. So very, very close to being done. All right. So I do want to go back to I do want to make it back to tops down, but I guess the last thing here is really talking about this connected planning process. And this was a very common thing that came up. And as much as we are anti-spreadsheets and will forever be anti-spreadsheets, people love their spreadsheets. So we decided we needed to actually support that. There are people that have complex spreadsheets with formulas and they're calculating their quotas. Maybe they want to get historical quotas into Fullcast because they're wanting to see what those look like versus the new ones. And there's a lot of reasons why you would want to, one, import quotas directly into Fullcast, but also being able to quickly export them as well. So that is now also available in the platform. And I think Victoria, just speaking for you in this one, was we saw some of the different regional ops teams wanting to still use these things in a spreadsheet, or a manager wanting to just feel that familiarity with the spreadsheet and taking.
I think that, yeah, that was the big thing, is like the managers being able to kind of review and have their input. Because we can't necessarily enable all of our managers into Fullcast yet. So so to be able to let them be able to review it, provide feedback, all of that, it really needed to be offline, and it needs to be. And so we figured out a way to do it, but it was all through me. So it was me exporting and then me working with your team to import it. And so this gives the freedom for, so that, you know, our partners in Singapore are not waiting for me to sign online in New York to be able to get something done. So this is really, really huge, and something that we haven't yet told the regional teams about, and I know they're going to be very, very excited about when you tell them.
And the goal is always to get people into the platform and to do it there, but there are reasons why you want to be in the spreadsheets, and we support that now, right? And so new customers, I think, will see the biggest benefit of this, particularly with historical quotas and change management, because that is really, I mean, 7 years of CX, and that was always the hardest part of Fullcast, was the change management piece, and getting your revenue leaders on board and into the app, regional ops teams, and that usually is a multi-year process because there's so much happening in operations. There's so much complexity in this world that it does take time to get everybody kind of converted over and steer that ship that way. And I think that the import and export stuff will provide that flexibility and kind of bridge that gap of change management as you kind of move into drink the Fullcast Kool-Aid. I don't know. Fullcast world. I don't know. Anyway,
We call it Fullcast wine.
the Fullcast wine.
Yeah.
So we're at wrap up, but I do want to come all the way back and talk about the tops down stuff just briefly before we part ways. So tops down here, similar logic, and I don't want to go in, and we'll do it. Why not? So same stuff. We'll do split, metric, we'll do bookings, assign roles, just AE for now, FY26, and then we'll save this. Tops down is exactly kind of how we're used to seeing V1 today. We're only going to see the single node. You will start with your top level company, whatever the goal is, whatever that might be, in a schedule. There's APAC, by the way. Cool. And then save that. And same thing for here with the distribution. We've kind of combined that into the recalc screen. And so you can distribute this down all the way. Similar functionality as V1. What's coming next to this is what we teased earlier, which is this forced distribution model. So we have this bottoms up piece that we had already created. So bottoms up with the roll up, we have a bunch of ratios, right? Percentages that we've kind of allocated quota out to. And not only, not all the time is your bottoms up where you want to land, the 7 million. Maybe that tops down is the 10 million here. And so you want to force that additional 3 million to be proportionally allocated all the way back down through your hierarchy. And so this is this linkage of those two worlds and helping us distribute the 10 million more evenly across the entire org, rather than being kind of this like, you get this and you get this, you get that. But based on our bottoms up, we're going to kind of push this down. And that's this hybrid model of kind of bringing those two worlds together, is saying, well, my bottoms up is this, and based on productivity from last year and attainment and when we're going to hire people and all of these things, my number is 7 million. But you know what, the company says we're going to go do 10 million anyway, so we're just going to increment everybody up, and we got to distribute that quota out and figure this out. That's how we would kind of tackle this hybrid planning model. Anything else you want to add there, Ashley, Victoria?
Not content wise. I think since you mentioned the hybrid model, in the survey that we had with the registration, I was trying to get a sense of which of the 4 kind of buckets of functionality or features were most interesting. And that was the one that definitely people mentioned the most. So I know you're kind of towards the end. If there are questions that people have about, digging more into the thing that you were the most curious about, or any other questions, I wanted to make sure that we left some time and space for those.
That would be questions from the audience.
Yes. We'll pause for a second. And if you have questions, type them in. I'll keep an eye on it. But yeah, I have a last sentiment at the end, Tyler, that whenever you're ready for, I'll do that. But if there's anything else that comes to your mind, please go ahead.
There's always all kinds of things that come to my mind. Certainly like hybrid stuff too. The other piece of this that I like, this is part of Teamatory and part of just how we built this formula builder, is the ability to just stack targets on top of each other. So whether you're doing bottoms up or tops down, if you need to, and this was the tops down target that we pulled from, if we want to reference this in kind of how we set quota, we can pull this tops down in, and then have that distributed, multiply this by, a percentage. There's all kinds of different things that we can do with the formula builder to kind of give you that hybrid model. I really do think that forced distribution is probably the best case scenario of how those two really work together, because you are going to be running the bottoms up first. And that's kind of your realistic scenario from a RevOps standpoint. Like, this is what you're confident in. And the tops down is you saying, you know what, I recognize that it's not always my way or the highway, but the business has got to go hit a bigger number than that. And so we've got to figure out how to distribute that across the rest of the org. And I think that those are kind of the two worlds that we're dealing with, and that brings that together into the hybrid piece. I did also a little quick thing here, is in the bottoms up world, there is in the future here, the ability to not have a schedule. So, whoa, Tyler, what do you mean by that? So there is, when we think about rolling up targets, there is the schedules that you see that you say, I have a schedule at the all companies, it is flat, let's say. But when you have quota at the bottoms level, so at the rep level, and you a schedule, let's say you would take our government and you have a different schedule or seasonality with government, and you roll that up, that doesn't always mean that you want to roll that annual number all the way to the top and then distribute it evenly, because what you're doing is you're kind of forgetting about your quota capacity through month over month or quarter over quarter. You're going to hire people mid-year. At the end of the year, there's ramp involved. There's all of these things. And if you're just rolling up the annual number and distributing it flat, you're probably going to miss January, because you haven't hired all the people you say you're going to hire to go hit that annual number, which is the key. But if you're trying to like report out to your investors or to the street, and you say that this is your number and you haven't planned for that with quota capacity, you'll miss it. And in the bottoms up methodology, you now have the ability to kind of remove the schedule. And when you do, and you roll up, we will roll up the individual values from the bottoms up. So January will add up all of the Januaries through the hierarchy to all teams or all companies, depending on where you're at. February all the way up, March, so on and so forth. Now, if you add the schedules in, then we're going to do the annual and schedule that stuff out as I think most people are used to. But this was really important to me. And I remember having a conversation with you about this, Victoria, because this is I think a lot of companies do this annual roll up and then split it out. And I don't think it's right.
Yeah,
So
I think this was a really big one that I first of all, you did not tell me that we had this feature, so like I'm very excited right now. But I think that this is a really big one because we did have, like, this was something that we saw when we were doing our planning last year was, it would roll up and then it'd go by the whatever the seasonality is, and then we did Q1, like there was no shot of us ever hitting Q1 just because we hadn't planned to hire. And so now we do have the ability to roll it up at the month by month level. That's really exciting news.
secrets.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm gonna go tell some people. They're gonna be happy about it.
yeah, we did get that done. That reminds me, the last thing, were there any questions, Ashley, before I just kind of talk about the last bit here?
No,
Great.
no.
Okay. I love that. That means I was perfect. The So roadmap items for us. We have a team that's dedicated to this, and we're kind of just going fast and furious at a lot of feedback from a bunch of our customers this year. And so upcoming auto recalculation of targets, a new report module for targets, proposed changes for targets. So much like you're used to today, where you have accounts kind of move around and they're in a proposed state versus committed state, we'll be doing that with our target module as well. Providing some better adjustment capabilities for managers. So today, when you're in here and you want to adjust a target, it very much feels like, where am I here? Let's go down to a person level target. So in this person, if I want to adjust boggy, it's not as straightforward, right? So you got to come in here and add this adjustment, and there's some clicks in here, and it's month by month. We're going to look at making this really simple and easy to do from the grid, to do it annually instead of at the monthly level. So those are improvements we're looking to make for our managers that are in here, making those adjustments, and some controls and permissioning that we'll be adding to both just target visibility, but also how you make adjustments. There's probably some stuff that I'm forgetting about, but those are kind of like the big wins that's coming up and coming for us on the target module, and we're continuing to listen to feedback from the customers. So if you have it, send it my way, and would love to hear from you all. Other than that, I think we're good.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Victoria, for joining us. It's great to have your input and also share your experience. We really appreciate that.
I really like having customers on this, because this is the real life. Like, this is, you're in the trenches using not just the tool, but also doing the RevOps stuff. And this is how we all learn from each other. And this is what the office hours are about. I think this is not just about selling you on product, but about actually using this and delivering something that you all are excited to use day in and day out. And thank you everyone for taking the time. And Victoria, it's good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a final slide there with our next topics. I have to tease our next topics. There we go. Reporting and holdouts. I've done it. So our next upcoming office hours, we'll talk about some new slick reporting functionality, and then we will also talk about the holdout or holdover policies that we are working on as well.
Holdouts, that's a big one. We're getting close to the end of that. That one's slated for our October 31st release, and that is going to be a massive change to holdouts for us. Big increase in different scenarios that we've seen, so I'm excited about that one.
Awesome.
Okay, I'll end it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Really appreciate your time. Take care.